Hello, it's Parm King, and today's Dungeon Master tip is player notes. Now, our job as Dungeon Masters or Game Master is to provide detailed information to our players so they can make an informed decision. As the Dungeon Master, we know about the world. We know the names of the NPCs, the locations, the quests, and the various miscellaneous items. But our players do not. And sometimes we overload our players with information. Now, note-taking can be a difficult task if we're trying to be engaged and play at the same time while keeping detailed notes of information. And in many games, a player is selected as the note-taker or the scribe, which is kind of unfair as they're taking notes, the other players are actually kind of playing the game. So how can our players take notes, accurate notes, and still be engaged? And this has always been something that's players, I think, have continued to wrestle with. Well, this tip actually comes from my mother, who used to teach English literature years ago, well, decades ago actually. She reminded me that we want to keep succinct notes. Notes are to recall information from our brain. Our brain's like a file cabinet, and using very succinct notes recalls that information instantaneously. It makes it easier for us to comprehend information. She had a rule of 4 W's: the who, the what, the where, and the when. And she reminded me in a simple rhyme, if you follow this rule, you'll be great at succinct note-taking. It was, if it's a proper noun, write it down. What does that mean? Well, if a proper noun is if a person has a unique name, or a location does, or an object does, write that information down. It allows you to continue to be engaged in the story, or listening to the lecture, or following the book or the film while you're taking notes. You can do 2 things at the same time. You're just writing down a single name. Now, how can we do this in Dungeons and Dragons? Well, the most easiest way to do it is with a piece of paper and a pen, and we can do this either at the table, or we can do this when we're playing the game online, such as myself. Now, we create 3 columns. We're only going to use the 3 W's, the who, the what, and the where. And I have an example right here of one that I have. Let's bring that up. So my first column is the who, a name, the proper name of somebody: Count Lugosi, Elizabeth Lugosi, Dr. Seward, Strahd, the abbot. The second place is the locations, the where: Ravenloft, Kresk, Vallaki, a crypt. And the what: dark power, a topaz necklace, a spell scroll. I can just draw a simple line and connect it through there. I'm just recording one name, a succinct name. That means the next session, whether the next session is next week or next month, I can pull out my notes and right away know if it's a name of a person and what's it connected to, the where or the what. We can do this same methodology using Word or actually Excel, or if we want to take our notes and clean them up a little bit, we can do that using Word and Excel. And let me show you a really simple example of that with Word. In Word, we can quickly create a table by just going over here and saying insert table, make it 3 rows, just bring it down, and just going to type in the who, gosh, I can't even type today, who, where, and what. We can also use color coding in both Word and Excel, which might be even more helpful for you. For instance, let's say it's Reggie the Rogue, and he wants to go to the Dark Castle, and he's looking for the Dragon Stone, which is a treasure. We have Mary, the mage, and she's a friend as well, and she wants to get the Dragon Stone. Then there's that evil villain that's trying to kill us, and that's who should he be? He should be I don't know, I'm making up a name. Will the Warlock. Will the Warlock lives in the Crystal Cave, and he has a deadly spell called the Spell of Death that actually Mary the Mage wants as well. We can easily go through and color code this. The Dragon Stone is a treasure, so we can go ahead and just make the background of the treasure, let's say gold, for instance. And both Mary the Mage and the rogue both want the treasure as well. So we're going to make them gold in the background as well. But they're allies, so I'm going to make their their letters dark green, so I know that they're good people. Meanwhile, Will the Warlock, well, he's a bad guy through and through, so we're just going to make his letters dark red, and we're going to make the background red as well. This guy is a bad guy. He lives in the Crystal Cave, which is a dangerous location for us, and he has a spell of death. That's actually a treasure that Mary wants. So we're going to do the treasure is gold, but it belongs to our evil mage, so his letters are red. There we go. So whatever color coding works for you, you can go ahead and do it. Makes it really easy for you, and you can do this after the game, or if you have Word up, if you're playing online, or if you have your laptop with you when you're playing at a tabletop, you can go ahead and use Word and keep the notes succinctly if you're able to type fast or you're comfortable with using it. We can also do this with Excel. Let me just bring up an Excel sheet. I did the same thing here in Excel. Freddy the Fighter at the Dark Fort, Melkor the Warlock at the Bad Temple, and the Dragon's Eye is the treasure. And you just can go up here. You have fill color and a color for the font. These are just simple tools that we already use every day: Excel, Word, or as I mentioned before, a simple piece of paper to write down and connect the dots. Again, we want to make sure, we want to help our players help themselves and make sure that they take the notes and get those proper nouns, those proper names written down so that they can recall them for the next session and figure things out. Now, I do have one last tip for you that I use in my games. If a player didn't take notes or took notes incorrectly or forgot something, you can have your player roll a wisdom saving throw and set your DC check on how common or important that information is. Perhaps it's a common place that they've all been to several times. They just forgot the name of it. Maybe it's the Yawning Portal, for instance. Well, you can set the wisdom saving throw actually really low. Maybe it's 10 or lower, or 5, and they roll and you tell them the name. If it's something that's more remote, something that's more exotic, or they've only heard once and they forgot to write it down, you can make that DC wisdom saving throw a little higher, maybe DC 15 or higher. Now, I only usually let them do it once between a short rest or long rest in a single session. If they failed the first time, they don't get to know, and after this short rest, they get to roll again, and maybe you lower the DC by 1 to make it a little bit easier as they're trying to remember that. So remember, just create 3 columns: the who, the where, and the what. Remember, if it's a proper noun, write it down. It keeps your notes succinct. They're easy to recall for the next session, and you can continue to engage in the game. I hope this was helpful for you. This is Parm King signing off, and may all your rolls be critical 20.